This is the record of the testimony as given by John Harrison Mullins, the son of Ira and Louanza Mullins, who stood as a witness at the Dr. Marshall Benton Taylor trial. Please note, part of this story, the questions asked of the witnesses are fictional, because at the time of the Taylor trial, shorthand reporting had not come into popularity, nor was court reporting efficiently done. In the making of a transcript of evidence to be used in an appeal to the State Court of Appeals, the judge would write the appeal, the lawyers would write out the evidence or testimony given by each witness in a narrative style. These transcripts were not done in the present-day question and answer style, as only the answers are given by the witnesses that was recorded. If the lawyer's transcripts did not agree on the testimony given by the witness, the judge would then write the questions which caused the disputed evidence in the transcript of the trial. This is done only in this transcript. But according to Mr. Johnson, there were 12 exceptions that were supposed to be sent to the appellate court with the transcript. These exceptions, whatever they were, never made it to the court, and now have been lost to time. Because of the circumstances, the testimony of John Harrison Mullins was very limited. It consisted of who he was, the makeup of the party, and to establish a timeline for the events leading up to the massacre. He continued his testimony relating to the story about what he saw as the ambush began. This included seeing Wilson stagger and one of the horses falling as he started running down the mountain. John also testifies that his suspender had been shot nearly in two, and that he had ran all the way down to the little town of Pound. He goes on to tell the court that the first people he had talked to was George Francisco and Jemima Harris. John Mullins is then asked about the shooters, to which he replies that he did not see any of them. The prosecution then asked John Harrison to describe how the parties were arranged when the shooting began. It is of interest to note that his answer contradicts the testimony of his Aunt Jane when she was later asked the same question. For the most part, John's testimony matches the testimony given by Robert Mullins as to where the bodies were found, and Jane's does not. This will be covered in greater detail in our video about the testimony of Jane Mullins. John's testimony was, at the time of the shooting began, he and Greenberry Harris had been walking just behind the wagon. His father, mother, and John Chappelle were all in the wagon, and his Uncle Wilson was before the wagon. An interesting point here is that some sites report that Wilson had, like Jane, been on horseback. He then states that his aunt, Jane Mullins, was on horseback just behind the Harris boy and himself. Another interesting point to make here is that there are many stories about Jane and her horse, including several that Jane had told herself. Several of the stories state that Jane had fallen behind, and that John and Greenberry had noticed this, and had, quote, just been wondering where Jane was, unquote, when the shots began. Although we could not find no corroboration for the versions of the story, one must wonder if this was something that John had related to people later in life. From all accounts, it seems that John and his aunt had become estranged after the shooting. The land and cabin of Wilson and Jane in Camden was either returned to the widow Vanover or was sold soon after. In October of 1892, just 10 days after Jane was released from protective custody, Jane and her new husband Isaac Belcher would move into Ira's cabin in Pound, Virginia. This would have left John Harrison Mullins homeless. The prosecution finished questioning of John Mullins by asking him about the number of shots fired and if his father had any money. To this, John answers that he thought that there must have been 100 shots fired and that his father did have money. He goes on to tell the court that his mother was carrying part of it in a belt under her dress, and that the rest of it was in a little handbag in the wagon. He also tells that the pocket was cut out of the belt his mother had been wearing, that the handbag was missing, and that he thought there was about $1,000 or more between the two. The defense asked no more questions of John Harrison Mullins. We at Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our series on the Killing Rock. Don't forget to hit the like button, as more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube will suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell for notification. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we bring to you the history of the Appalachian Mountains. We must remind everyone that the story names Killing Rock, the Oft-Told Tales, and Killing Rock, the Untold Story, and Killing Rock, the Trial are all under Kentucky Tennessee Living copyright.